You know, guys, when something like this happens, the first thing that comes to my mind is how is it possible, guys? How is it possible that buildings are being hijacked in the middle of the city? How is it possible that buildings are literally hijacked in the middle of the city and there's absolutely nothing that the government can do about it? Or there's absolutely nothing that the government is doing about it? How, guys? Today, over 70 people have lost their lives. Over 40 people have been injured in Johannesburg because the whole building caught fire. Because the whole building is an informal settlement. So, a lot of questions came to my mind. I was like, who is the owner there? Who is the landlord? Who is collecting the rent there? And how did they occupy this building? It makes no sense to me, guys. How did they occupy that building? How? I'm not really surprised that Herman Mashaba is so mad about everything that has been happening in Johannesburg, because he is one person who was fighting this whole thing of hijacked buildings in Johannesburg. I'm not surprised that he is so mad about everything that is happening right now. And people are not asking relevant questions like, guys, these people who go there and hijack these buildings and declare themselves as landlords, they can't operate alone. They can't operate alone. Who is behind these guys that are hijacking buildings in Johannesburg? And guys, are you honestly telling me that these people can simply go inside the buildings and hijack them and there's nothing that the government can do? Are you telling me that I can go right now from now where I am in the Free State and go to Nelspruit and find the building and hijack it and declare myself as a landlord? Guys, what is happening exactly in South Africa, man? What is happening in South Africa? Just imagine a whole building in the middle of the city has been turned into an informal settlement. And the government knows about it. And they are doing absolutely fuck all about it.
Well, it's actually more than tragic, Heidi, because this is something which was avoidable. I remember on the 1st of December 2016 when I first raised this issue of hijacked buildings. At the same time, I was sitting as a mayor of the city of Johannesburg with over 300,000 housing backlog. And when I raised this question that we cannot let people live under these conditions, let us expropriate these buildings in the event we cannot find the owners, give them to the private sector to build affordable accommodation for our people. But then, unfortunately, people with interest in these buildings unleashed insults, and including the ANC reporting me to the South African Human Rights Commission. Fortunately,
did you hear that, guys? Herman Mashaba says the ANC reported him to Human Rights Commission for trying to fight this whole thing of hijacked buildings in the middle of Johannesburg. So the ANC is fine with everything that has been happening there in Johannesburg.
Enough, I had the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa on my side, because what I was actually preaching and expressing at the time, it's in line with our Constitution. This was avoidable, but my sincere condolences to the victims and their families. This situation could have really been avoided, and let's really hope that this can really be a lesson to ensure that things like this do not really happen in the future.
I want to ask you, though, Mr. Mashaba, around the ownership of this building, because we had the mayor here today together with other officials from the city, and they've confirmed that this building is indeed owned by the city, but it's being leased out. But the issue here is, if a building is being leased out, surely you should check up on it. You were the mayor. What are these processes like? How do they allow these buildings to end up like this and become hijacked and have basically informal settlements inside a building?
You see, Heidi and your viewers, you see, if there's no political will, you can never really solve this problem. When you allow the so-called human rights lawyers and the people insult you and you give up, unfortunately, you will have a situation like this. By the time I left the city, I'd already identified 600 buildings. I'm sure you're aware, 154 of them we had already awarded to the private sector to build affordable accommodation for our people. I had committed to give away at least minimum of 100 buildings to the private sector to build up accommodation. I was not prepared to be sidetracked and diverted by these so-called human rights lawyers. I was determined to expropriate these buildings and ensure that we can provide affordable accommodation and safe places for our people. But then when you don't have political maturity and you cannot take insults, you cannot take criticism, unfortunately this is what ends up in happening. If this building belongs to the city, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever why you should allow criticism to really stand in your way. And that's really what I found when I took over as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg. You needed to really have the courage to do what is right for your residents and your country.
So are you saying that the current administration in the city of Johannesburg is actively ignoring this problem?
Let me tell you, look at the 154 buildings passed in council to the value of 32 billion rand. I think about 3 or 4 of them I had already done the sword turning. People had spent money to really give us proposals. What happened? If I'm not wrong, only 1 or 2 buildings were constructed. The private sector lost money by giving proposals, which we took through council. A proper, transparent process was followed. But then, obviously, at the time in 2019, when the ANC and DA wanted me removed as a mayor because they said my focus from the DA side was I was focusing my energies on poor areas, and obviously ANC, I was fighting corruption because, unfortunately, our politicians, senior politicians are...
So if the DA kicked Mashaba out because of this issue particularly, and the fact that he couldn't get along with the DA, especially when it comes to this whole thing of hijacked buildings in Johannesburg, how is the coalition going to work when it comes to these issues? Is Herman Mashaba now going to do everything that the DA says he must do? Isn't that the reason why he went out and started his own political party? Because he wanted to focus on issues like these without having any leashes on him. So how is the moon-packed short going to affect him when he wants to deal with such issues? Because there are a lot of people who are following Mashaba because of these things. There are people who are following Mashaba because of how hard he is on crime and the fact that he doesn't mince his words. But how is that coalition going to affect him? Because if the DA didn't want him to go through with this whole plan of expropriating these buildings that are hijacked in the middle of the city, they are not going to allow him to do that even after next year. So how is he going to work with the DA after what the DA have done to him?
A part of this syndicate responsible for this property hijackings.
Mr. Mashaba, you said that this incident could have been prevented. Now, the blame shifting has already started inside the city, saying, the NGO was responsible for the building. But at the end of the day, the city is responsible for this building because they own this building. Would you say the city has blood on their hands after this incident?
Well, I think it depends, honestly. You can put the blame on the city, you can put the blame on the province, you can put the blame on our criminal justice system. I'm a living example of cases of criminality which our law enforcement agencies were refusing to prosecute. We had identified plus minus over 600 buildings where we needed prosecution, because the city of Johannesburg, we run metro, so you don't have prosecutorial responsibility. I'm sure all of you as journalists are aware how many times I made statement to the effect that I really wish major cities like the city of Johannesburg must be given the right to prosecute, we must be given our own prisons. Unfortunately, this is a responsibility of national government. When you have a situation like this, where you have so-called human rights lawyers will stop you from doing anything about this, you know the people behind this hijacking, you need prosecution. When the national government does not come to the party, the province does not come to the party. I'm sure all of you are aware how many times are requested Premier.
And guys, politically, who is benefiting from everything there, man? Who's benefiting from all of these things that are happening there? Because there have to be politicians behind these guys, man. There have to be politicians. Who is benefiting from everything there? And it's unfortunate because what happened today, there's a huge possibility that it might happen tomorrow. It might happen 2 days after, because a lot of these buildings are informal settlements. A lot of these buildings are informal settlements. And even the transport MMC there in Johannesburg, it's also furious, man, at the South African government for actually failing to deal with this issue of hijacked buildings in Johannesburg.
But the biggest challenge for us as the city, when we try to respond to this, is the law. The law of South Africa protects criminality. The laws, the property laws of South Africa protect criminals who hijack buildings. Today, in Terfontein, in Rosettenville, you go on holiday for a week. When you come back, people are staying in your house. When you try to take them out, they call the police, they say, this person has rented the house to us, now they want to evict us. The police say, you have to go to court to evict them. So the problem, the biggest problem, to evict these criminals, because once you say a building has been hijacked, a crime has been committed. Once you say there's an illegal foreigner, a crime has been committed. So the problem is the law, because the law says, before you can take them out, you have to find an alternative place for them, even if they are illegal in the country. But the
Jeez. So taking them out, it is not enough. You have to find a place for them to live. But guys, it is sad, man, what happened there in Johannesburg, man. It is very sad, man, what happened there. And this only shows the failure of our government. This only shows the failure, man, because I can only wonder how many buildings are like this one. I can only wonder how many buildings are like this one, man. So that's why I'm like, exactly who is benefiting from everything that is happening, because it makes no sense for buildings to be simply hijacked like that, man. You heard Herman Mashaba is talking about 600 buildings. Just imagine 600 buildings is the whole city, man. The whole of Johannesburg is hijacked then, man. They might as well change the name of the whole city. Change that name from Johannesburg maybe to a hijacked city or something. Because if 600 buildings in Johannesburg are hijacked, the whole city is hijacked. So guys, honestly, there's nothing that they can do about this. There's nothing that they can do about it. So from you guys, what do you think should be done about this thing? What do you think should be done? Because the other thing that I think, again, maybe the ANC, I think maybe partly they are careful of is it's how people are going to deal with this whole thing, especially when illegal immigrants are concerned. Because as much as you want to clean all this place, you don't want to do it in a way that actually encourages people to go out there and start attacking illegal foreigners in South Africa, man. You don't want to do it in a way that is xenophobic, basically. You want to do it in a clean way. But what is that clean way of doing it? What is that clean way of doing it? Because I think even the spokesperson of the president said they have to find accommodation for all of these people that are affected. They have to find accommodation for them. Meaning they're simply going to squeeze them into another building. That's what's going to happen.
At a police function, and early in the morning I heard about this tragic event. We are very saddened as government about the passing of so many people here in Johannesburg. This is unprecedented. Johannesburg has never had an incident like this where so many people die as a result of fire in the center of the city. So this is tragic. This is very sad, and I want to pass my condolences and that of the government to the families of those who have passed on and those who are still in hospital. I'm told that as soon as the fire was reported at 1:19 in the morning, in 10 minutes the firefighters were here. That is a real good and quick response which we must recognize on the part of the province, the city, that they have been able to be ready for calamities and events like this. A response of 10 minutes when there's such a devastating fire is something that needs to be recognized. The sad part is that much as they fought the fire, they were not able to save everyone. And some people were saved, up to 49, but it's said that we've lost up to 74 people, and some of them children, who must have died very, very tragically. And this is the type of death that we never wish on anyone. And the aftermath of all this, in terms of the actions that have been taken, I have found to be in line with what we expect. The people were taken to hospitals, those who were still in a state of shock and injury, to the surrounding hospitals, and those who have lost their homes or accommodation are going to be catered for. The ministers and the MECs and the province and the city are working now full out to make sure that those who need assistance, from accommodation to trauma counseling to hospitalization, are being looked after. Now obviously this needs to be investigated. I was talking to the Premier earlier, and we are going through, and they are going through the process of setting up an investigation process, which the Premier and the city will announce in due course. We've got to go to the bottom of what caused this fire, and also address from now on, it's a wake-up call for us to begin to address the situation of housing in the inner city. That a building like this, which I'm told used to be a home for abused women and children, once the lease had expired, it was then hijacked, and we need to get on top of this and find effective ways of dealing with problems of accommodation, of housing and services in the inner city. So the people who are, the mayor is here, the municipal manager and members of the mayoral committee like Councillor Dada, Morero and others are here, and they will be applying their minds, and I want them to find solutions and better ways of dealing with the challenge of housing that we have in the inner city. So once again, condolences to the families of those who have lost their lives, and I know that people will be upset and fearful, and those are issues that we've got to deal with, and we will deal with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. And guys, before I go, man, the one thing that I really want to say is that I've seen a lot of people, especially online, saying nasty things about all of these people that are affected, because the majority of them happen to be illegal foreigners. Guys, what happened here is painful. People lost their families, people lost their loved ones. Regardless, it doesn't matter if they are in the country illegally, but they've lost their loved ones. Please, let's be compassionate, guys. Let's be compassionate. Don't let your hatred, your manufactured hatred towards another people turn you into this kind of people that you are, guys, online. Stop doing that. People lost their lives, people lost their families, people lost their children, guys. Please, let's be compassionate. It doesn't matter. Just because a lot of people who were affected here by are illegal immigrants, it doesn't mean that they deserve this. They don't deserve this. So guys, please, let's be compassionate, guys. Please tell me, guys, what you think on the comment section, and please hit that like button. And the most important part, guys, please subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.